Finally, it's time. I can introduce you to my new wings. These are the second generation of the North Novas. So for 2022, North have basically gone back to zero and started again and developed a whole new wing. You will notice that the plan shape, the outline of the wing is completely different to the Nova 1. We have a lot square wingtips, a lot more sort of depth to the chord, so lower aspect shape, which makes for a bit more grunt, but also makes it so much easier for freestyle and also for beginners learning. You don't have so much problems with the wingtip catching on the water and catapulting you over. This makes for a much more fun and easy ride. All right, the one you're looking at here is the 3.5. I also have the 5 meter here in its bag. You'll also notice we've stayed with sort of the longer bag, which makes it a lot easier to put it in. You just fold the wing in half and it goes in nicely. It's a nice compact bag. And what we still have obviously is this awesome shoulder pad here, which means when you're carrying your foil, it doesn't hurt your shoulder as much, especially if you have to walk a long distance. Another cool new feature for 2022 is, once I turn this around, you will see, yeah, here we go. We have hard handles now on here. This is sort of a compromise between having handles and a boom. Obviously, the drawback of a full boom is you have to either remove it completely if you want to pack it small, or you have to pack it long. Having two smaller booms or hard handles allows you to still fold up the wing quite easily without having to remove the handles. Now, initially last year, when we first started testing these, I was not a fan of hard handles. And they, however, grew on me quite a bit because soft handles have this issue, especially if they're longer. If your hands are always going to slide to the lowest part, obviously because they're flexible. And that means that if you're trying to hold it farther forward or farther back, away from that lowest point of the curve, it tends to tire out your fingers. What sort of the straight hard handle does is it doesn't have that bend to it, doesn't have that lowest point. So wherever you hold it, you are not using more energy to grip. So I found that I could ride longer, especially when riding without a harness, without my fingers starting to get tired. So what that meant was when I went back from using the hard handles like these and going back to longer soft handles, my fingers were getting tired a lot quicker. Another advantage of the hard handles is in freestyle maneuvers, you're a lot more directly connected to the strut, so it's easier to swing the wing around. Also for especially race jibes and race tacks, it's a lot more intuitive to be able to slide the front hand back and forwards. I was a massive fan of Y handles, actually I still am, of Y handles on the Nova 1 because there it allowed me to move my hand around and to readjust for maneuvers. And now with the long handles here, I can do the same. So for example, in a race jibe, I would slide my hand down quite far on the handle, and in attack, I would have my hand quite far forward, but I can actually just move my hand to wherever I need it to be rather than having to change handles. We also really kept some of the great features from the Nova 1. So we kept the 4-point connection system for the strut. That is essentially the two hoses here for the one pump, which obviously having two makes it a lot easier to inflate and deflate. But also the strut is connected here and on the back here with a little line. That means the bladder can't sort of collapse in on itself when you deflate it and leave it lying around, which means you can sort of hang this up to dry and not worry too much about the bladder collapsing, and then when you pump it up having a void and bursting. Another cool thing that we've upgraded also on the kites is the new inflation valve. It's still the bayonet system, but we've improved the little socket on the bottom, it's a lot easier to unscrew and screw. I learned last year, I actually sort of really sprained my thumb, and I had problems on the sort of round, smooth inflate socket. And now with this star shape, it's a lot easier to turn. So as soon as we had those, I didn't have a problem anymore, even with my injured thumb. So if it's cold, if you're not so strong, it's a lot easier to open this valve now. Also, the hat has this sort of nice grippy sort of area there. But we've kept the bayonet the same, so any sort of pump hose just clicks in and off you go. Our surf handle, it's quite a beefy, sturdy surf handle, giving you a lot of control over the wing in the wave. For example, if you sort of catch the wing on a wave and it sort of flips over, it's very easy to flip it back because you've got a very solid and stiff connection here. Just under that, you will see the really nicely reinforced attachment point for the leash. This is definitely not going to rip out if you get washed. All right, the main difference, how does it sort of fly? The first thing you'll notice compared to the Nova 1, that it's a lot more stiff and solid. So when you're pumping it, it generates a little bit more power. It's a little bit easier to sort of get that grunt to get up and on the foil, allowing you to use a slightly smaller size than you would. So nowadays, where I would have been using the 4.2, I can use the 3.5. The windows are positioned so that when you're flying, you're naturally looking through the bottom window. So the wing is flying at about 30 degrees in front of you, and then you're looking straight through the bottom window. But if you're one of those riders which really, especially on the smaller wings, rides really low down and really like cranked in, you can actually look through the top window, especially on the smaller sizes, to get a full view. The windows are vinyl, so you don't have to worry too much about them. But when packing, I really recommend you make sure that the windows aren't constantly folded. You don't want to get a crease in them. All the seams on the leading edge have protectors on them. So if you're going to be using this thing on land for wing skating, snow winging, sort of a snowboard, skis, or on ice, all the scuff pads here will protect your seams if you catch your wing on the ground. Well, I hope I answered most of your questions about the new Nova. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask them below in the comments. I will try to get to every question in due time. Stay tuned, because in the next video, I'm going to be talking about the new medium aspect front wings for the sonar foil, and I'll also be talking to you about the new Seek wing foil board.